So I'm not going to lie, I actually struggled with the idea of not doing this video, because the amount of coverage by national media and YouTubers that has surrounded it, I just struggled with it. So I told myself that I needed a certain type of criteria to actually do this video. I gave myself 7 things that needed to come around. Well, not only was all that criteria met, but a plethora of other reasons to do it came forward. Which leads me to today's guest narrator. Now this man, if you're a fan of true crime, then this man really probably doesn't need any introduction. But for the casual observer, I'm going to give you this man's resume. And it's a big one. And it's going to be brief because it would take me 10-15 minutes probably to rattle off this guy's credits. But he was the former owner of Dearly Departed Tours, which unfortunately shut down due to the COVID pandemic. But he owned Dearly Departed Tours in Los Angeles, California. Produced and directed 3 documentaries: Dearly Departed Volume 1, Dearly Departed Volume 2, and my personal favorite documentary of all time, The 6 Degrees of Helter Skelter, which is a mammoth documentary which visits all the locations of the Helter Skelter crimes conducted by the Manson family. He's done a show for E! Called Hollywood Death Trip that he co-hosted with Danielle Harris, who played Jamie in the Halloween franchise. Well, Halloween 4 and 5. She kind of got screwed on 6. He's been on The Girls Next Door, The Layover with Anthony Bourdain. If you're a fan of Ghost Adventures, you've seen this man with Zach Baggins and crew on the new episode where they investigate the Cecil Hotel, the Bird Lady, and Elisa Lam. So if you've seen that, you've seen this man. He was a technical advisor to Quentin Tarantino on probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And currently is the owner of Dearly Departed Online. You can check out his videos right here on YouTube. An amazing man. And I reached out to him several weeks before I even decided to go up to Idaho to film this series. And to be honest, I didn't expect to hear back from him. I know he's a very busy man, but amazingly, he reached out, not just by email, but by phone. And when he agreed to help narrate this video, I was over the moon. And it just put the cherry on top of the sundae as far as this story goes. So today, come join me and the original death hag himself, Scott Michaels, from Dearly Departed Online, on the special edition of Dear Boss Tales Presents The Murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart. If you haven't heard of this one, you're in for a wild ride.
Really actually gonna do it?
Oh, yeah?
I was like, what's the first camera?
Hey, look, it's Cassie.
Hey, look, I don't know.
Hello, Cassie. I'm getting you on tape, okay? Say hi, please.
Hi.
Okay, see ya. Have you seen Tori? He's supposed to meet me here at 7:30, and it's 8:19. He's an hour late. You don't even care, do you?
There should be no law against killing people.
This morning, the state put to death Paul Ezra Rhodes.
7 years ago today, a Pocatello woman was murdered, and that case remains unsolved.
Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get?
Gathered tonight in Pocatello to show support for the family of 11-year-old Jerilee Underwood. Cassie Jo Stoddart was born on December 21, 1989 in Pocatello, Idaho. Growing up, she and her little brother lived primarily with their grandparents, Paul and Josefino Cisneros. She was described by friends and family as a hardworking, responsible young woman who was friendly, outgoing, and never had a bad thing to say about anyone. At some point, she and her brother would move in with her mother, Anna Stoddart, and Anna's long-term boyfriend, Victor Price.
The apartment you see up the stairs in this building is the former home of Victor Price, Anna, Cassie Jo, and Andrew Stoddart. A now famous photograph of Cassie Jo, Anna Stoddart, and Andrew Stoddart, along with two other unidentified relatives, was taken on the very steps that you see in front of you.
Cassie attended Pocatello High School and was a straight A student. While she was sociable, Cassie tended to stay away from the typical teenage hijinks. In April of 2006, Cassie began dating a young man and fellow classmate by the name of Matt Beckham. Her family and friends described the two as a cute couple who loved each other and spent every minute they could together. Matt and Cassie had befriended two fellow classmates, Tori Adamczyk and Pocatello native Brian Draper, who had recently moved to Idaho from out of state. Draper and Tori had bonded very quickly over their love of movies, especially horror movies. They were often seen filming themselves and others around their school.
Now, Tori Adamczyk, he was described as loving and caring by his family and friends, but was a little more introverted. Brian, on the other hand, was actually more of a outspoken kind of guy who actually was known as a very, very good soccer player. I guess he was very talented at soccer. But because of his lanky frame and a very pronounced stutter that he had, apparently this caused him to be bullied and more of an outcast. So we saw a kindred spirit inside of Tori when they became friends. And they both loved movies, particularly the horror genre. And that's what they bonded over.
Cassie had just got her driver's license and, like most teenagers, desperately wanted her own car. She made a plan. She took as many house-sitting and babysitting jobs as she could to obtain her dream. One of her favorite clients, her aunt and uncle, Frank and Allison Contreras, would regularly ask her to house-sit for them on weekends and care for their two dogs and cats. The home, located at 11372 Whispering Cliffs Road, is in a beautiful yet somewhat remote area of Pocatello. On September 22, 2006, at approximately 3:30 in the afternoon, Anna Stoddart picked up her daughter Cassie and Cassie's boyfriend Matt from Pocatello High School. She drove them to the house on Whispering Cliffs Road. At around 7 p.m., their friends, Tori and Brian, came to the house for a visit. Matt and Cassie let the young men in and gave them a tour of the home, including the basement and garage area. The group played on a weight machine inside the garage and grabbed some popsicles from the freezer before heading back upstairs to watch Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 2. During the movie, Brian excused himself to the restroom. He returned a few moments later and announced he needed to leave as his mom wanted him home before 9:30 p.m. The two boys said their goodbyes and left in Tori's red Geo Prism. About 15 to 20 minutes after Tori and Brian had left the Whispering Cliffs home, the power went out, leaving Matt and Cassie in total darkness. At first, the couple brushed it off as nothing more than a simple power failure, but soon they heard noises coming from the basement. One of the family dogs ran to the staircase and began barking and growling while staring down into the basement. Both Cassie and Matt began to feel like there was someone else in the house.
Now, at this point, according to Matt, because of the noises they were hearing in the basement, Cassie got really scared, really frightened. And originally they were going to actually go down into the basement and check and see what they were hearing. But because of the actions of the dog and the obvious noises that were coming from down there, they decided to do the smart thing and remain upstairs. And the power remained off for about 10 to 15 minutes. Shortly thereafter, partial power to the house was restored. I hear a lot that full power was restored. That's not true. Only partial power to the house was restored. And fortunately for them, part of the power that was restored was to the kitchen, where a cordless landline phone, again, cell phones were not massively in use at this time, so a cordless house phone was actually turned back on. And Matt immediately got on the phone with his mom and called his mom and told her about what was going on and that Cassie was really scared. And he asked if he could stay the night with Cassie that night there at the house on Whispering Cliffs. Matt's mom told him no, but she had a surprise for him and that he was going to be super excited. Now, the original plan was that before Brian and Tori had left the house, Matt asked Tori if he could possibly stay the night at his house. And Tori said, yeah, just give me a call when you're ready and I'll come pick you up. So after he got off the phone with his mom and she declined allowing him to stay at the Whispering Cliffs house with Tori, she offered Cassie to allow her to stay the night at their home and return her the next day. Well, Cassie told him no. She was an extremely responsible young lady, and she felt she had a responsibility to her aunt and uncle to watch over the family pets in the house. So even though she was scared, she told him no and stayed. So Matt's mother said, I'm on my way, I'll be there in about 15-20 minutes. During that time, Matt made another phone call, this time to Tori Adamczyk on his cell phone. And when Tori answered the phone, he was whispering. Out of curiosity, asked, what are you doing? And he goes, I have to whisper because me and Brian are in a movie. So Matt said, okay. He goes, I'm not going to be able to stay the night at your house. My mom already said no. Can we meet up tomorrow? And Tori said, yeah, we'll meet up tomorrow. And they disconnected the call.
Cassie declined the offer to spend the night at Matt's home and remained inside the house, alone. Matt returned to his own home with his mother and his father, who had been released early from a rehab center. Matt listened to his dad talk about his experiences while in recovery. The two then watched The Rookie and part of The Green Mile before going to bed around 3:30 a.m.
All right, so what you got here is Idaho State University Holt Arena. This is the home of the Bengals. Most notable alumnus is a gentleman by the name of William Peterson. Now, if you don't know that name, he's an actor. He has been in the movie Manhunter, which was the original adaptation of Thomas Harris' book Red Dragon. He played the character of Will Graham. He played the character of Pat Garrett in the movie Young Guns 2 with Emilio Estevez and Lou Diamond Phillips. But most currently and most famously known as the lead character Gil Grissom in the television series CSI. Now you're probably asking why I'm showing this. Well, that's because on September 23rd, at day after Cassie was killed, Tori Adamczyk and Cassie's boyfriend, Matt Beckham, actually met up right here at this very area for an event inside these doors. Now, I don't remember what the event is. It was a rodeo. What's that? Football. Oh, football game. And so, yeah, they met up here. And Matt actually left with Tori and stayed the night that night, not knowing the very next day his girlfriend was going to be found dead. This is it right here. They were inside this area.
On Sunday, September 24th, 2006, Cassie's aunt and uncle returned home with their daughter. What they would discover inside their home was nothing less than horrifying.
Emergency 911?
Somebody looks dead on my flag. I need an ambulance out of my house. Yeah. Oh my god, oh my god.
This is a transfer from the county.
Go ahead. There's a girl dead on my floor.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know. She's on our floor, bleeding, not moving.
Okay, I need you to get down and tell me if she's breathing.
No, she isn't. She's cold.
She's cold as a touch?
She's cold.
Can say was the condition of the body when the Contreras found Cassie Jo was so bad they didn't even recognize Cassie Jo. And as you can hear on the 911 call, they're not sure who it is. They think it's just a girl.
Immediate suspicion fell on Cassie's boyfriend, Matt Beckham, as he was officially the last person to see Cassie alive. Matt, with his mother and father, voluntarily went to the police station to be interviewed. During this interview, police found Matt's reaction to Cassie's murder as odd. Matt showed little to no emotion as he was questioned. One detective remarked that Matt seemed cold to the news. It was during Matt's interview detectives learned of Tori and Brian's visit to the house on the night of the murder. Pocatello and Bannock County Police interviewed both Brian and Tori at their homes on the night of September 24th, 2006.
Now, after finding Cassie's body and interviewing Matt Beckham, Matt had told the police about Brian and Tori's presence at the house that night. So they immediately wanted to talk to them and speak to them about what they could have possibly seen or whatever. And at this point, they just decided, well, we'll show up at their homes. And so they immediately went to Tori Adamczyk's home, which is where we're going now. And he was the first to be interviewed. This is it, guys. This was the Adamczyk home where Tori Adamczyk lived. After speaking with Tori and getting his side of the story and what had happened on that Friday night, September 22nd, they then left and drove the nearly 4 miles to Shale Drive, which was the home of the Drapers. And they interviewed Brian Draper there. And he gave them relatively the exact same story that Tori had. And at this point, Matt Beckham was still the number one suspect. He was technically the last person to see Cassie alive. But they had both before leaving, the police had actually asked Brian and Tori both to come to the police station over the next couple days to have an official interview. And this is where things started to heat up.
Both seemed shocked by the news of Cassie's death, and the two boys provided identical accounts of their whereabouts on the night of the murder. At some point, the police left to give Tori and Brian time to grieve. But they did ask for both boys and their parents to come to the police station to give full interviews within a few days. Police still listed Matt Beckham as their primary suspect.
Now this time it was the reverse. Brian was first to go and be interviewed. And when he got there, he gave him the same story, but some of the details just, wasn't working out. There was points where he told him that him and Tori had gone to the movie theater and had watched the movie Pulse. Well, when they asked Brian about what the movie was about, this is what he said.
And you're absolutely, unequivocally positive that you two went into Pulse. You two bought tickets for Pulse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What is the movie about?
Jeez, I don't exactly know. I remember being really bored.
I mean, you're movie buffs. These are things that you pay attention to, right? I mean,
at least
you guys,
parts of the movie. There's so many characters you can hook us up with to describe somebody in the movie, describe what happened. What's it all about?
Well, it was. I can't really exactly explain the movie because I didn't pay attention to it.
So how long do you think you were inside that movie theater? Grand total.
We were there for maybe 2 hours.
2 hours? You were inside? And you don't remember one detail to help us out. We're trying to help you out.
Yeah, I know, that's what I want to tell you. Jeez, let's see.
We've done our homework, okay?
Yeah.
We've talked to a lot of people. We've viewed tape, okay? And I'm here to tell you, you didn't go to the movie. Okay. You were not at that movie theater.
these are the types of situations that you don't lie in. When it comes to a murder of a beloved friend, you do not lie.
Here, to solve what happened to Cassie. Yes. And we didn't know if you were involved in that. And if you are, that's fine. We can deal with that.
Fine.
We can deal with that. But
you guys are ridiculous.
Well, we're not being ridiculous.
Killed my friend. Why the hell would I kill Cassie?
Did anybody? Do you know who did?
No, I don't know who killed Cassie.
Well, this is what my plan is, okay? And I'm gonna tell you right from the beginning, okay? I promise you, okay? Look at me. If you had something to do with this, I'm gonna find out.
Now, at this point, Tori had come down, and he had been interviewed as well.
Let's talk about knives. Okay.
And as the story started to crack, and as more holes in their story started becoming evident, Tori admitted that they were not actually at the movie, that they had bought the tickets as an alibi because they were actually robbing cars in several neighborhoods, including Cassie's neighborhood and Tori's own neighborhood.
Okay, so you never did watch a movie.
Yeah.
Now what are you doing?
We were scoping the neighborhood
Why?
Because we were planning to go through cars.
When you say go through cars, what do you mean?
We just walk by, push the handle, and if it's open, we get in it and steal the gas money or change.
Okay. And what was one of the cars you came to? Give us a description, give us a location, give us a house that was parked in front of. Anything, street light that looked weird, tree. I mean, anything you can think of.
I don't know, a lot of cars.
But as they began to question this, they couldn't identify any vehicles, they couldn't identify anything taken, they couldn't identify even a color of a vehicle. But because of this, they did this just because they were lying did not amount to murder. But at this time, Matt had moved away from the primary suspect. And Tori and Brian were now directly in the police crosshairs. So polygraph tests were actually scheduled for both Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk. And Brian, again, was scheduled to go first on his polygraph test. And he arrived at the Pocatello Police Department to take the polygraph test. Well, after arriving, he turned to his parents and asked if they could step out. He needed to talk to them. So they granted him that authorization, and they stepped out of the entire building where they talked. And they returned about 10 minutes later. Brian was in tears. His dad was in tears. His mom was in tears. And they told the officers that they needed to meet with the detectives before the polygraph test could be taken. And what Brian would go on to tell them is what wrapped this case up.
Okay. We went all the way over here. Okay. We went here. We parked. We went inside her basement. We go upstairs. Then we were out of the room and she's on the couch. Who's she? Cassie. Okay. Wait, you had a knife? Yeah. Shut the store. We shut it to scare.
During the interrogation, Brian admitted that he and Adam had asked a friend by the name of Joe Lucero to buy them knives from a pawn shop. Both of them were under the age of 18 and needed someone of age to purchase the knives. Lucero agreed and drove with them to Mad Mike's pawn shop and trading post, located at 1238 North Main Street. Brian would lead detectives to an isolated hiking area outside of town. It was here where he and Tori had discarded the items tying them to Cassie's murder. The most damaging was a videotape. Brian and Tori recorded themselves planning the murders of both Cassie and Matt, along with other classmates from their high school.
Brian admitted that the matches he had bought that night. And after they'd killed Cassie, they had gone back to Tori Adamczyk's home, spent the night, but they waited for Tori's parents to go to sleep. And after they were sure they were asleep, they snuck out and drove a couple of blocks to a convenience store called Common Sense. So after they returned back to Tori's house, they waited until Tori's parents went to bed, and Brian and Adam came to this Common Sense right here off of Alameda and Highland. Entered this Common Sense, and this is where they bought their matches, where they tried to burn their evidence. This is literally like nuts. It's so close to my mom's house, it's ridiculous. Wow. And Brian went in and bought a book of matches with the intent of burning the evidence. But one big piece of evidence that was in all the other stuff was a videotape.
There should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah. We're going to go to that church over there, and we're going to call a girl and a guy named Cassie and Matt. They're our friends, but we have to make sacrifices, so.
I feel we need to break away from normal life.
I feel tonight it is the night, and I feel like I want to kill somebody. September 22nd, 2006. We're skipping our 4th hour. We're writing our plan right now. I'm telling Cassie's family, but she had to be number one. We have to stick with the plan. And she's perfect, so she's gonna die. And they are right in that house just down the street. We know there's lots of doors. There's lots of places to hide. I locked the back doors, so it's all locked.
So I'm now currently sitting on Whispering Cliffs Lane. The home that Cassie was murdered in is directly behind me. And this is the spot that was identified as where Brian and Tori parked Tori's Geo Prism and filmed the famous footage of them talking about unlocking the door and just having to wait to go back to the house and sneak in. This is the site that they were looking at that night, just moments before they took Cassie's life. This is it right here, guys. It's a beautiful area. Very remote, but the homes up here are gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, if you pay attention very closely to the video where Brian and Tori have just committed the murder, and they said, we just killed Cassie, this is not a joke. If you pay attention, this is the road right here that Tori is turning on while Brian is screaming what they just did.
Just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like fucking real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
Brian Draper was officially arrested for Cassie's murder. 1 hour later, Tori and his parents arrived at the Pocatello police station for their interview. When faced with the information provided by Draper, Tori asked to speak with an attorney. In front of his parents, Tori was arrested for Cassie's murder.
They entered the house through the basement, and they started making noises in an attempt to lure them down. When that didn't work, they found the circuit breaker and cut the main power to the house, resulting in that time, because they figured that what would happen is that would lure Cassie and Matt, or at least Matt, down into the basement. And that's when they would start their slaughter. Now, Brian, whose parents seem to be a little bit more wealthier than Tori's, hired a public defender to defend Brian. Tori's mom and dad mortgaged their house and got an upstanding law firm to represent Tori. And they were able to successfully expel 2 different presiding judges that were supposed to preside over their case. They got them expelled and got different judges each time. The third one finally stuck. But through a lot of legal maneuvering and a lot of different things on the Adam Check part, they got the 2 cases separated. So they weren't tried together, they were tried separately. And ultimately, it was no different than the interrogations. They each blamed the other one for what occurred and claimed the other one was the one that killed Cassie, and that the other one just thought it was a joke and was horrified by what was going on.
On April 17, 2007, almost 7 months after Cassie's murder, Brian Lee Draper was found guilty on 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. He was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder charge and an additional 30 years to life for the conspiracy charge. On June 8, 2007, Torrey Michael Adamczyk was also found guilty and received the same sentence as Draper. Both were transported to the Idaho State Correctional Institution, where they are now serving their sentences. The final stop on this twisted story is the saddest. It brings us back to Mountain View Cemetery in Pocatello to visit the final resting place of Cassie Jo Stoddart.
It's really one of the few cemeteries I've ever seen that actually has an interactive directory. And literally, you can go right on in here. Type in the name of whoever you want, and it tells you exactly where it's at. They even provide paper. Here she is, Miss Cassie Jo Stoddart. Killed by 2 of her best friends. People she befriended that nobody else would. As you can see, such a sad, sad case. Unbelievable. But she lays right here. God bless you, sweetheart. Brian says he carries your picture in his cell every day to remind him of what he did.
While filming Cassie's grave, a man approached to question what was going on. He introduced himself as Paul Cisneros, Cassie's grandfather. Paul was very kind and allowed filming to continue. He did not want to appear on camera, but did offer information about the case and an update on Cassie's family.
So, this was really, really, really amazing. We actually just had a very long, nice conversation with Cassie Jo's grandfather, who just bought his own headstone. His name is Paul Cisneros. Gave us permission to shoot this. And they wanted to make sure that they were buried right next to Cassie Jo. And this is Paul's sister, Helen. He's a very nice man. He was very open, able to talk to us, gave us permission to do this. The trouble that this family has gone through after this death, I don't think these 2 idiots realized exactly how much pain and trauma they caused. Amazing. Now, after coming face to face with Paul Cisneros at Cassie's grave, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I mean, I can only imagine something like this happening and walking up on a grave of 2 people shooting video of your granddaughter's grave and not know what's going on. But the interesting thing about it is that as soon as he saw my brother Rob, he got a look on his face and said, "I know you from somewhere. I know you from somewhere." And my brother Rob goes, "Yeah, I know you from somewhere." And took less than 15 seconds for them to figure out how they knew each other. And it turns out my brother Rob knows Cassie's grandfather, Cassie's uncle, and also Cassie's brother Andrew. But he never knew that they were Cassie's family. Kind of shows you how small an area that Idaho, southeast Idaho is. Now, a few years back, the United States Supreme Court ruled that children who commit murder or crimes that will allow for life with no parole was deemed unconstitutional, which brought hope to the Draper and Adamczyk family that one day their sons would eventually get a chance to see the outside world again as free individuals. Well, I can honestly say at this point, the Idaho Supreme Court and everybody has not upheld that. And they've upheld Tori and Brian's sentence of life with no parole. So, what do you think? Do you think they deserve parole? Or do you think that Idaho's right for upholding their sentence and keeping them in jail with life with no parole? I want to thank Scott Michaels from Dearly Departed for helping me out on this video today. Amazing job for his narration and for helping a fan of his. He didn't have to, but me being a fan and stepping up and helping me with this video, I just can't thank him and his husband Troy enough for this. It was an amazing honor, and I want to thank him. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks, Scott. Thank you to my wife. Thank you to my beautiful daughters. Thank you to my brother Rob. Thank you to my beautiful niece Jocelyn. Thank you for all of you for watching this video. And I can't wait to see you again on the next one. But until then, as always, deuces.